Teachers at Reddit, what's the weirdest thing a student answered to tell me a fun fact about yourself? A guy in my class introduced himself by telling us how he decided he wanted to study philosophy because one day he was really high peeing in the street and he saw a couple of people working and he wondered what they were doing. So he realized his passion was wondering. He dropped out like 2 months later. We did one of those 2 truths 1 lie bits. Girl stands up and says, "I've never been out of the country. I'm a twin. I love playing sports." I knew this girl beforehand and knew she didn't have a twin. So picked that one. Nope. She had a conjoined twin that died in utero and had to be surgically removed and she's now missing the last vertebrae on her spine. Showed us the scar and everything. Apparently the lie was the first one as she'd been to Mexico. Had students, aged 11, sharing strategies for dealing with difficult emotions. One at a time in a big circle. One girl talked about digging her nails into her face whenever she was feeling stressed or anxious. And I had to explain to the class why self-harm was not a good coping strategy. A student once told my wife that her daddy had a special device that he had to blow into to start his truck. He's definitely not an alcoholic. My dad clogged the toilet this morning and that's why I'm feeling frustrated -5-year-old child. I will say the question was, "How are you doing this morning?" But I could barely keep from laughing out loud. I have vibes. My toddler once told visiting friends that daddy takes long poops. I mean, I was having a flare up and had some extended bathroom sessions. But, dang little dude. Not cool. I'm terrified amused about what he might share at school in the near future. In my psychology class, we were talking about the early signs of serial killers and the quietest girl who never spoke told the story of when she lived in Chicago. She had a friend around 5th grade who would always stomp on baby birds and once put his hamster in the microwave. Well, his parents were having difficulty keeping up with his antics, so they sent him to his grandmother's, who he promptly stabbed to death when she woke him up for school. So that was interesting. I am not a teacher, but this guy in my class named Shane has this medical condition that causes him to grow tons of hair at an early age. Full beard in middle school. He would say, "I'm Shane and I'm very hairy." Double quote. He could say, "My name is Shane, but friends call me Harry." Double quote. That he has been to juvie multiple times and is currently on probation. Then he pulled up his pants enough that everyone could see his ankle monitor. That was something. During French class, a guy in my class said that he liked stabbing children. He meant that he fences but didn't know the exact translation for that. I love the French class fun facts. In a beginner French class, I had to accidentally come out to the class when I was asked whether I had a spouse. Jesus and a lesbian. It was awkward. I've had my hand up a sheep's bum shocked me slightly. Child of a farming family. Helping with lambing season. My friend is really quiet. He doesn't really talk unless talked to. He's really cool though and has some things he enjoys doing. Literally second year I knew him, the teacher asked this and he said he's a professional bowler with a 300 best. And I was like, why haven't you told Emmy this? That's amazing. I guess it just never came up. Haha. Knew him for a whole year and never knew that. Not a teacher. But in 3rd grade, we would do this weekly "how was your weekend" sort of thing where we'd sit in a circle and share. This one girl casually goes, "I found out that my biological father didn't want me," in a super nonchalant tone and everything. I still remember the awkward tension. When I was in my first year at university, my law and society professor made each student get up, say his her name and tell why they picked law school. Well, a guy got up, said his name and the professor interrupted him by asking Anon, "Are you related to X?" The guy, "Yes, professor. He is my grandfather." Then the professor got excited and started talking about what great of a guy X is and that he haven't heard of him in years. Then the professor asked how he was. Anon replied, "He is dead, sir." The whole class was trying to hold the laughter. It pretty much broke the class that first day. Student told me that there is a chapter dedicated to him in a dental surgery textbook because of a very rare disorder that he had as a child. I may still have that essay. Not a teacher, but I was a helper in a middle school classroom. A young girl, who seemed uninterested, said, with no hesitation, that she can chug an entire bottle of beer. She got expelled later that year for keeping drugs in her locker. Brutal. I'm a middle school teacher and I find that most adults who don't spend much time around kids don't realize just how young middle schoolers are. I mean, lol, immature middle schoolers is kind of a meme. But seriously, we are talking about 11-year-olds here. I was an ESL teacher in Indonesia and a student once told me every morning she cleaned the tea on her bed. I asked her to clarify. Worried she had a serious digestive issue. She answered, I brush my teeth, wash face and clean bed sheet. Okay, so I had psychology back in the spring semester before COVID hit and I sat next to a girl who I was good friends with from high school. Professor asks her for a fun fact and she said, I like to watch people get cut open. Double quote. She obviously said it for effect. But she cleared it up by saying she liked watching videos of people getting plastic surgery because it's satisfying to watch. The explanation is just as bad. Someone in a class once told everyone about how his grandparents were arrested for keep a bunch of adopted children in cages. He said that he used to play with the kids when he was young. But he was too young to understand that the conditions they were in weren't normal. They kept kids in cages and locked in rooms for years before they were discovered and arrested. Yup. Fun fact. Edit. I'm not a teacher. This person who told the story was in a class with me as a young adult. In the context of having students introduce themselves one by one to a new boy in a small high school class. A girl said her parents got her a nose job and a boob job. Is that even legal to get a boob job for a minor? I have 2 thumbs on this hand. I am raising cockroaches in my closets to sell to the reptile shop. Edit to say, thanks for the silver. I want to clarify that these quotes come from different kids. But it's definitely more entertaining to imagine than being the same. Also, I learned so much about cockroach raising from the comments. I wish I had asked more follow-up questions at the time. I'm a teacher from the UK. Form tutor to a year 7 class, 11-year-olds. To get to know each other on the first day I had them take it in turns to say their name, which primary school they've come from and an interesting fact. Like favorite food or color. We get to the last kid in the class. His fact is that he has 6 fingers on one hand. Coolest kid ever. Lol, that's like my brother. He was born with 6 fingers on each hand. But he had them removed as a baby. When he found out around age 10, he got so mad because he said he could have been really cool and really fast at typing. Double quote. Not me but my brother. He told the teacher last night my family ate beaver for dinner. I was much older and had left home by then. The class laughed. The teacher accused him of lying. The principal was brought into this and my mother had to go in for a meeting. She chewed them up one side and down the other because we had a cousin who was a trapper and he had sent a batch of beaver thighs for the family to enjoy. Although my brother was telling the truth. He told me later that he did say that for the effect, disrupting the class. I don't ask for a fun fact. But on the first day I always ask, what's your most recent obsession? Low stakes. Building affinity networks. Etc. Etc. In my first semester. A student said air. As in oxygen. My husband is an aerospace engineer who used to work specifically on air systems for private jets, and legitimately. He was obsessed with air oxygen for an extended period of time. He would come home and just be so passionate about the specifics of the air oxygen pressure system design he was leading. I knew what I was getting into marrying an engineer, but oh boy. I did not see an oxygen obsession coming. It wasn't weird. But actually cute and funny. I was teaching 5th grade and this kid, white as paper, goes, my name is, but you can call me Lebron. He had an obsession with LeBron James and I did in fact call him Lebron whenever I wanted to get his attention. Great kid. Damn, are you my English teacher, cause this sounds like something she would do. I know a lot about medieval torture equipment. Double quote. I've researched some hella painful ways to die. I'm using that whenever someone asks me that question. Kid in my kindergarten class said my pee-pee fell off at Disneyland. I didn't ask any follow-up questions. Maybe it's like those lizards who can drop subsequently regrow their tails to escape predators. Not a teacher. But on the first day of 9th grade we had to form a circle and say one thing about ourselves that we thought was unique. When it was this dude's turn, let's call him Mike, Mike stands up and says in a really serious tone goes, "My mom and dad grow weed." And X200B. His house got raided the next day and his dad got arrested SMH. During an introductory activity for my new class, a boy, age 9, got up and said my dog has to wear a cone on its head because dad had his bollocks cut off. Apostrophe. A student. Not a teacher. But once we were going around a circle during percussion camp in the front ensemble and my teacher goes, "Hello everyone. My name is and I have shit my pants as an adult." Double quote. Definitely one of the weirder ones I've heard. Knowing drummers, I'm not a bit surprised. My arm is FK'd yawl in the deepest southern drawl and proceeded to wildly swing his fucked up arm around. He was 12. Had Erb's palsy and also got detention that day. He might be one of my fav students. I can play this in my head and it is hilarious. One guy. I love rape. Sometimes I rape. Sometimes me and my friends like to get together and listen to rape. Double quote. Some of my favorite rappers include Tupac, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Biggie. My favorite RP song is. Double quote. English was not his first language. He had us in the first half. Not gonna lie. Edited to add a continuation and make it clear everyone figured out what he meant once he started listed the famous rappers. Not a teacher but the daughter of one. My dad had a student tell him during the fun fact question in detail about how his goldfishes died that morning and how he experimented on their corpses. He had pictures on his phone of the skin off and the intact skeleton next to it. And X200B. He is a successful taxidermist now, so silver linings I guess. Not me. And not a fun fact. But teacher-student story related. A close friend was doing an activity where the teacher had everyone anonymously write down some traumatic event or something that happened to them. My friend couldn't think of one. So he made one up. Little did he know the teacher randomly selected some to read out loud in front of the class. And his was chosen. He had written, "When I was 9 I was forced to RP my neighbor's cat." The class went dead silent. The teacher was speechless. My friend nearly had an aneurysm trying to hold in the laughter. I was in one of the first small required classes for my teaching degree and everyone in the class was studying to teach. It was day 2 or 3 and we were doing a get to know you activity where we share something about ourselves. I don't remember the exact question but it had something to do with what you regret take back. A guy came in late, when almost everyone has answers the question, and the professor asked him the questions and he thought for a moment and said, "I regret letting my friend talking me into dropping acid." The class was silent for a good 20 seconds until the professor said, "Maybe next time we only share things that are legal." I hadn't seen him in any other teacher classes since. Still laugh about it to this day. Not a teacher. But a few years ago on the first day of school this kid in one of my classes casually answered, "I have a restraining order on my dad." Double quote. That's actually a smart move. Now everyone in class knows that this father can't come pick him up. You will think less of me if you Google me. Double quote. I'm not a teacher but back when I was 16 I was kicked out of class for answering "I set my balls on fire and swing them around for people's entertainment," even though the rest of my class confirmed it was true. I still do it sometimes. I remember one kid used it as an opportunity to explain that he believed in the flying spaghetti monster. I'm a student but a kid in my class said that he loves chicken nuggets, then sat down and didn't say anything to anyone else for a month. I have so much admiration yet confusion for him. Nugget is real. Not a teacher. But first day of high school when we did introductions, one of the popular girls said, "Hi, I'm Maisie. And I'm trash." Wait, no. I'm fan trash. And then proceeded to explain that she read smutty fanfics to every and any of the teacher that asked what fan trash is. We were 11. British high school. This is so very British upper school. There is always one. A girl we went to school with fully licked the side of a teacher's face from chin to forehead and was known for smacking the pay teacher's ass. She got kicked out for a week for unwanted sexual contact. Opposite side of the classroom. But on day 1 of class our professor spent most of the time talking about himself, his mental health, and how he was friendly with students. While he didn't say anything specifically creepy, the more he talked, the more put off I was. It just seemed deeper than a get to know you as the first time I'm meeting you speech should have gone. It was an intro to research class and I already had research experience, so I got permission to waive it and I dropped the class. Later learned he killed his previous TA girlfriend before killing himself. Follow-up question. Teachers that put everyone on the spot like that. The fuck? One time a teacher in university made us introduce ourselves and say why you picked this class. So I said my name is redacted and I picked this class because, well, you need X and you have to pick something. Double quote. They didn't like me very much. That when he wiped in the bathroom this morning, there was blood on the toilet paper. Lol. Be honest. Was it you? And did those sweet pants used to be blue? First day of intro to lit during my freshman year of college. When asked an interesting fact about myself, I said I refused to bungee jump. Slightly confused. My professor took the bait. My professor replied, "That's sort of random. Why do you refuse to bungee jump? Is it a certain fear?" To which my reply was, "To be honest with ya, sir, a broken rubber brought me into this world. So I'm going to make damn sure one doesn't take me out of it." Luckily, the professor was a chill guy. The entire class exploded with laughter and it was a good time. I said my dad steals cars. It was something my parents always told us growing up as a joke. The teacher just laughed and said, "That's nice." My dad used to joke that he was off to the coal mines every morning. He also never told me what his job actually was, so I just believed that he worked in the coal mines despite the fact that we lived in Southern California and he wore a suit and tie to work every day. He was the CFO of a subsidiary of a company you've probably heard of. I was just a little bit off. I found my dad who hung himself. A 5th grader. Yikes. Poor kid. Open bracket. Not a teacher, but my friend said masturbation is his passion. Thanks to the virus. His passion is in fashion. I'm not a teacher, but this may qualify. As a freshman in college, this kid named Brenton told our class his name was Brent 5 on. But the 5 is silent. He was a weird cat. I mean, do you man? But it was the most awkward silence from the lecturer and professor I have ever witnessed. I hate that I remember this. Along the same avenue. After an winter half term, the teacher asked, "How was your break?" My class was silent for some glorious seconds when it was my turn and I said, "Well, my granddad died and my dad got married, yes, in that order." My teacher asked my mum if it was true at parents' evening a few days later. Sorry, MR. More. I have 17 piercings, but only 6 are readily visible. I'm trying to work out where the other 11 go. Like tongue, nips, belly, dick clit, webbing, smiley, collar. I'm missing 2. Unless they had labia multiple Prince Alberts. He has a TV in his bedroom. He was 17. Close bracket. I'm so confused. Is this abnormal or just too normal? Had an in-depth conversation with an almost 6-year-old about being a secret werewolf hunter at night. Student described how they track and often makes friends with werewolves. Also demonstrated a stunning amount of knowledge about the moon. Haha. For folks worried about the vibrant lying. This is very typical for young students and one of their relational avenues for assessing adult reactions. And imaginative storytelling is an important developmental trajectory. At certain points children start telling stories that they themselves know aren't true, which can be super annoying. And is also a wonderful window into a particularly complex part of cognitive development. Close bracket. Not a teacher, but I just did a first aid course. During introductions, say your name and one fact about yourself. Dude says proudly he once had over 300k of unpaid parking tickets. I had a student who has an identical twin brother 2 years younger than him. His dad was a pro athlete who had the money to freeze an egg after splitting. His wife then carried both at separate times. I tried to make conversation with a 6th grade boy who didn't have any friends in my class. I asked him what music he listens to and he said mukbang soundscapes. If you don't know, mukbang is when people eat a ridiculous amount of food in one setting. My first year. As an earnest and ideological teacher in a very rough and underserved area, I got all the students in a circle on the first day to talk about what we'd done that summer. I pointed to a student who'd been engaged me before class and said, "What did you do this summer that could inspire us?" His answer, "I did the last 2 months of a sentence for stealing a car." Double quote. I hadn't expected that. So I pointed to another student and said, "Okay. That's great. Let's talk about what you did this summer." Double quote. That student said, "Yes. I had such a good summer. I went to camp and..." Laughing, Lem stopped lying. "I did the last 2 months of a sentence with that guy cause I stole that car him." Double quote. I think his name was Carter. He stood up and said, "This is college by the way. One time I had sex with a girl in the bathroom." He was expelled. He was probably an unstoppable sex machine. My son told his 7th grade teacher that he had a Sasquatch uncle. The teacher was doubtful until my wife wrote the teacher a note scolding the teacher for not believing and backing up my son's story. In retrospect, it's likely the teacher just humored everyone while thinking my wife was a lunatic. Obligatory. Not a teacher. First year college. A guy shared with the class that he hated dogs. We were veterinary students. 1 year later he dropped out. And 3 years later I dropped out too. Did you discover you hate dogs too, or what happened? I was teaching a 10th grade honors English class once and this pleasant young woman busted out the C word. "See you next Tuesday." I hadn't had any trouble with her whatsoever. So I was a bit shocked. The whole class went dead silent. I told her she couldn't use that word in class and she was confused as to which word I was referring to. Finally, I said the C word. She repeated it and then admitted she didn't know there was anything wrong with it because her parents use it at home all the time. The rest of the class let her know it was bizarre that she was using it. Edit. She was not Australian. I had a 3rd grader who was in my gifted and talented class. This is relevant. Her classroom teacher complained to me that when she asked this question of her class, this girl answered that she likes to break things and make voodoo dolls of her enemies. 3rd grade. Needless to say, I told the teacher that somewhere in an 8-year-old girl's bedroom is a voodoo doll of her and probably me too. I'm a trainer at a bank. And I've learned some really interesting things about my colleagues doing icebreakers. One guy used to be in a pretty successful metal band. Another can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 2 minutes. Yes. I made him prove it. One woman was a professional pianist for a while. And another can read tarot cards. I'm seriously thinking of putting on an employee talent show. Not a teacher, but this happened when I was 17 at school camp during a bonding exercise. Teacher. Tell us 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself and we have to guess the lie. Weird kid. I play PlayStation. I like Doritos and I am an alcoholic. The teacher. The lie is you are an alcoholic. Weird kid. Got you. I play Xbox. My god, the look on the teacher's face. In my public speaking class at a community college, we had to get up and do a speech about our experience that really changed our lives or an important memory and how it made us who we are. On the first day, a guy who was a veteran volunteered to go first. He proceeded to talk about the day he was captured and sexually assaulted by enemy soldier and how he now goes around and helps other soldiers with the Wounded Warrior project. It was difficult for anybody to follow that. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. I was probably one of those weird answers. I'm Cats Over Flowers and I'm part of a sword fighting group. Don't think many teachers believed me, but it was true. That strikes me as a perfect reply, plausible and intriguing enough to be memorable. Great fact for 2 truths and a lie too.